In a world where trust is sacred, one woman's betrayal sets off a chain reaction of heartbreak and revenge. When I found myself entangled in a web of infidelity, little did I know that my husband was about to discover the truth in the most devastating way possible. What unfolded next was a shocking tale of love, betrayal, and nuclear revenge. This audio story captures the raw emotions and tumultuous aftermath of my choices, leading us down the dark path of divorce. Join me as I recount the painful journey of a shattered marriage, revealing the consequences of deceit and the lengths one might go to reclaim their power. Audrey, my wife, had always been a beacon of light in my life. Tall and slender with beautiful brown blonde hair, she had a figure that turned heads. The moment we met, her eyes sparkled like a child's on Christmas morning, igniting a connection that felt magical. At 6'2", I was an athlete with a swimmer's build, and our friends often teased us about our radiant smiles, which seemed to reflect the deep affection we had for each other. For the first 2 years of our relationship, our intimacy was nothing short of amazing. But everything changed when Audrey made a fateful mistake involving Brad, a towering basketball player. The news hit me like a tidal wave when I received a barrage of messages and pictures from a party where they had kissed and sneaked away together. Heart racing, I confronted her the next day. With tears in her eyes, she confessed that she had been drunk and made a foolish mistake, pleading that her love for me remained unchanged. Initially, our friends insisted it was a one-time fling and urged me to forgive her. After 2 weeks of battling my anger and heartache, I caved in but warned her that it was a last chance. In hindsight, I realized that those who encouraged forgiveness often ended up in troubled relationships, while those who advised me to walk away found happiness. As life unfolded, I established my career as a programmer while Audrey took a job as an administrator. We married and welcomed 2 beautiful children, Matt and Marcy. Life felt idyllic until Audrey transitioned into real estate, leading to long hours that strained our connection. The ghost of her past mistake loomed over me, prompting me to install monitoring software on her phone and a recorder in her bag, desperate to protect my heart. It wasn't long before I uncovered the truth: she was involved with a man named David. My heart shattered as I listened to their conversations, devoid of the affection that had once filled our home. I tried to reignite the spark by cooking her favorite meals, dressing the kids for special occasions, and showering her with love and attention. For a fleeting moment, it felt like there was hope when she told David she couldn't meet him on Friday night. I organized a beautiful dinner at a 5-star restaurant, hoping to reconnect. We even attempted to break our record for lovemaking that night. Though we didn't succeed, it was a joyful effort. The following day, we enjoyed a fun-filled day at the water park with the kids, and for a brief moment, everything felt right. However, my world came crashing down again when I saw Audrey's text to David the next morning: "Looking forward to seeing you. I missed you." The words cut deep. I realized I had been living a lie. I could no longer trust her, and the thought of what she had done felt like a betrayal to both me and our children. Determined not to let her deception continue, I decided to take control. I wasn't going to resort to violence, but I would expose her double life and seek primary custody of our kids. I knew I had to show everyone the truth about her choice to prioritize her lover over her family. The week following my decision, I took note of an upcoming concert for Marcy's group. I cleverly moved a reminder on Audrey's phone to the day after the event and made sure to confirm that she was with David at his apartment during the concert. I left her a message, pretending she had missed the event. Marcy was understandably upset, but I soothed her, explaining that adults sometimes become busy with work. Audrey's late arrivals became a distressing pattern. One evening, as we returned home, I noticed that she smelled freshly showered, despite still being in her work clothes. She attempted to reconcile with Marcy, who eventually forgave her but insisted she couldn't miss the next concert. I couldn't help but wonder if Audrey was genuinely remorseful or simply scared of being exposed. As fate would have it, I discovered that Audrey and David frequented a small restaurant known for its Scotch eggs. I casually mentioned this to my father-in-law and made a reservation for the following Wednesday, ensuring that Audrey would still be at the office when we arrived. When we reached the restaurant, I felt a thrill of anticipation. Moments later, I spotted Audrey seated in the back with David. In a bold move, I asked loudly whether we should sit in a booth or at a table, her head snapping up in shock as she quickly moved away from David, who looked equally confused. As we settled in, I could see the color drain from her face. "Mom and Dad, what are you doing here?" she stammered, trying to regain her composure. "We heard about the amazing Scotch eggs and decided to try them," my father-in-law replied with a warm smile, clearly unaware of the tension brewing. Audrey, desperately attempting to cover her tracks, suggested that her colleague join us, pointing toward David, who was awkwardly waving. My mother-in-law's expression shifted to one of disbelief, and it was evident that the atmosphere had turned cold. I seized the moment, asking questions meant to draw out the truth. "How long have you worked here?" I inquired, watching David squirm under our scrutiny. "What a nice guy like you is still single." Then I added, "Audrey, you should introduce your sister to him. If it works out, we could be related." The tension in the air was palpable, especially as David replied, "No thanks. I have a girlfriend." "Is it someone we know or a secret?" I probed, enjoying the way the table fell silent. David stumbled through his words, revealing that he was in a bad relationship and trying to get out of it. All eyes turned to Audrey, and in that moment, I knew I was about to expose the double life she had been leading. The facade was crumbling, and I was determined to ensure that everyone, especially my children, understood the truth about their mother's choices. I pushed the Scotch egg around my plate, barely managing a few bites. Audrey, ever observant, noticed my lack of enthusiasm and leaned in, asking, "Is the Scotch egg not to your liking?" With a heavy sigh, I replied, "I've lost my appetite," my gaze fixed on her rather than the food. Across the table, Audrey's mother waved the waiter over, nonchalantly sliding him a crisp $100 bill to cover the check. In a hurry, she announced she needed to use the restroom before darting off, leaving the atmosphere tinged with an uncomfortable silence. The waiter returned, and Audrey's father eyed her lover with a scrutinizing look, as if he were a piece of trash left behind at a fancy picnic. Without a word, he also left for the restroom. "Sorry to interrupt your little business lunch," I said, trying to keep my tone light but feeling the sarcasm drip from my words. "I'm sure you have plans to discuss and people to deceive." With that, I stood up, preparing to leave. "Wait!" Audrey called out, rushing after me as I headed to my car. "It was nice to see you at lunch. We'll talk about this at home. My parents will be here any minute." I caught sight of Audrey's parents almost sprinting toward the entrance, clearly eager to avoid any awkwardness. Audrey noticed my gaze and quickly lowered her own. "Maybe it's better this way," she muttered. As her parents emerged, they wrapped her in a brief hug before climbing into my car. I walked away, a heavy silence hanging between us. The ride home was filled with unspoken tension, neither of us uttered a word. When I dropped her parents off, the routine was unchanged. Audrey's mother hugged me tightly, expressing her love like I was the son she never had, while her father simply patted my shoulder and reminded me to bring the kids over soon. It stung to realize that Audrey was so committed to hiding her affair that she would risk her parents' trust. This was not the first time I had seen the fallout of infidelity in her family. Audrey's younger sister, Karen, had already been disowned due to her own betrayal. Whenever Karen's name came up, her parents would abruptly change the subject, as if acknowledging her existence would somehow taint their otherwise perfect world. I remembered the Sunday when Karen had tried to slip into the church where her father was preaching. He had interrupted the sermon, apologizing profusely to the congregation before storming out, leaving Karen behind, a ghost in her own family. Later that evening, as Audrey returned home, she spun a tale about a dinner meeting with her lover that had secured a big deal for both of them. I couldn't hold back. "It's inappropriate to have dinner alone with an unmarried man. I don't want you near him anymore, and I definitely don't want you to go out to dinner with him again." "Honey, I'm sorry if it bothers you," she replied, her tone dismissive. I won't have lunch with him anymore. Don't worry. The conversation spiraled into a confrontation. I declared that I would sleep in the guest room until she apologized, not just to me, but to her parents too. Remember when your sister got caught cheating? I shot back. Audrey was clearly taken aback. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, she insisted, but deep down, I could see her worry. On top of that, I took the liberty of installing a switch in both her and her lover's cars while they were holed up together in his apartment. I even sabotaged the transmission sensor, leaving mechanics scratching their heads when they couldn't pinpoint the issue. One afternoon, while I was at Matt's football game, Audrey decided to spend time with her lover. Seizing the opportunity, I remotely disabled her car. Knock, knock. Her lover called out as they stood beside her non-starting vehicle. What happened? Audrey sighed in frustration. My car won't start. The battery is charged, the headlights work, but it just won't budge. Want me to give you a ride home? He offered. No, you idiot. If my husband sees you dropping me off, it'll be a disaster, she snapped. Just call a tow truck. I need to pick up Marcy for her band competition. Why not let your husband drive you? He suggested. He's at Matt's football game, she replied. Just take me to the rental car place. I'll call the tow truck and pay him to take it to our business address. As they drove to the rental agency, Audrey's phone rang. Damn, she muttered as she answered. Hello? Have you picked up Marcy yet? I'm having car trouble, I said, feigning concern. I think it's the battery, she replied, her tone edged with annoyance. No, I already called a tow truck and will rent a car nearby. Marcy will be fine. Okay, call if you need help, I said, suppressing a smirk before hanging up. Audrey's lover dropped her off at the rental car place, but the clock was ticking. She was late to pick up Marcy, and I had to step in, asking a friend to bring Matt home. I rushed to get Marcy for her competition, just in time. When we got home, I found Audrey still in her work clothes, her hair damp as if she had just showered. I'm so sorry I missed picking you up, Marcy, she said, her voice laced with false sincerity. I had car trouble and rented a car, but by the time I got to the place, Daddy had already picked you up. It's okay, Mom. I just made it to the competition thanks to Dad, Marcy replied, her tone more disappointed than grateful. This is the second time you've missed my performances. I hope your work is worth it. The weight of Marcy's words hung in the air as she retreated to her room, leaving me with a growing anger. I confronted Audrey. I called your office after lunch, and they told me you left. You had over 2 hours to pick up Marcy. What happened? Audrey froze for a moment, then stammered, I was busy with things and didn't think the car would break down. What things? You never mentioned them. I pressed, feeling the tension rise. Just some work that needed to be done, she muttered, clearly flustered. Well, I hope those things were worth more than your daughter's love, because you're on thin ice, I retorted before retreating to the guest room, the heavy silence echoing our broken connection. It was evident that Audrey cared more about her secret rendezvous than her role as a mother. The next few days only proved this further. The mechanics couldn't find any issues with her car, and Marcy's resentment grew. Mom, you said you were taking me and my friends to the mall this Saturday. Can you confirm that now? We don't want to be stuck there if your car breaks down again, Marcy pressed. Matt chuckled from his room, adding, Nice joke, Marcy. It was clear that the children felt overlooked and unappreciated by their mother, and I couldn't stand by as Audrey continued to prioritize her lover over our family. Audrey soon came to me, complaining about the children's lack of respect. But in my heart, I knew the truth, respect is earned, not given, and right now, she was failing in every way that mattered. On Saturday, I took Marcy and her friends to the mall, while Audrey claimed she had work to do. Her car was parked at a house for sale. I couldn't help but wonder who was with her. When we returned home, Marcy exuberantly thanked me in front of her mother, her voice ringing with appreciation. She then picked up her phone, completely dismissing Audrey's questions, her attention shifting elsewhere. Audrey looked like she wanted to voice her frustration, but I stifled a laugh, took a sip of my drink, and retreated to the sanctuary of my office. Audrey, still dressed in her work clothes, smelled faintly of freshly showered skin. I could almost picture her entwined in an intimate moment in that house she was trying to sell. I hope she at least changed the sheets afterward. As Matt's birthday approached, I orchestrated a small gathering. I managed to rent 6 lanes at a bowling alley for friends and family, a task that required some negotiation since most places were busy with Wednesday night leagues. When I informed Audrey, her expression shifted to one of unease. I suggested I would take the kids and their friends while she picked up the cake and candles. We would enjoy pizza, open presents, and bowl together. The week prior, I had sabotaged her lover's car 3 times to disrupt their clandestine meetings. After they rescheduled for Tuesday, I took matters into my own hands again, breaking his car after it was fixed. On Wednesday, I noticed Audrey's message, "Looking forward to seeing you a little later this afternoon." Her GPS indicated she was heading to his apartment, which gave her enough time to have fun, get the cake, and still make it to the party. With a sinister plan in mind, I rented a car with a spacious trunk. Confirming Audrey was at her lover's apartment, I placed a covered cage at the front door. With a door ram, I smashed the door open and unleashed an angry skunk into the apartment. Then I slipped away, eager to hear the chaos unfold through Audrey's phone. Screams erupted, accompanied by her lover's frantic demands to call the police. I swiftly blocked her phone number. When the lover finally did call for help, he explained a wild animal had invaded his space. The police arrived, weapons drawn, only to be met with the skunk's unexpected ferocity, leading to panicked shouts and an urgent retreat. Hours later, Animal Control managed to capture the skunk, but not before 2 officers questioned Audrey and her lover. 2 additional officers left quickly, clearly overwhelmed by the stench. "Who's the owner here?" one officer inquired. "I am," the lover admitted. "Who are you?" the officer pressed, turning to Audrey. "Just visiting," she replied, holding out her ID. "Is this really necessary?" "I just got attacked by a skunk," she protested, showing her identification. "How do you know him?" the officer asked, pointing to the lover. "We work together," Audrey answered, her tone defensive. "What were you doing here?" the officer continued, scrutinizing the papers scattered on the table. "Just picking up some documents," Audrey said, trying to sound casual. After confirming their identities, the officer asked, "Why was there a skunk in the apartment?" "It was a birthday present," the lover began, but Audrey quickly interrupted. "Did you buy an adult skunk for your boyfriend?" the officer questioned, eyebrows raised. "Not my boyfriend," Audrey clarified, her frustration evident. "Stop lying. Why did you buy an adult skunk?" the officer pressed. "I didn't. I got him a young skunk, he told me he loves them. I wanted to surprise him, but it turned out to be an adult, and it attacked him," Audrey protested. The officer raised an eyebrow. "The skunk must have been expensive." "Not too much," she replied, her composure wavering. "Do you buy expensive pets for all your coworkers, or just your boyfriend?" the officer interrogated. Audrey didn't respond, her silence betraying her uncertainty. "What about the broken door?" the officer continued, turning to the lover. "I broke it yesterday and didn't have time to fix it," he confessed. The officer stared at them for a moment, then sighed. "I know this is all a lie, but I can't stand this smell anymore. You and your boyfriend can leave. You both smell worse than us, and I'm not contaminating my car with that stench." With that, they exited, slamming the broken door behind them. "What the hell was that?" the lover asked incredulously. Audrey, quick on her feet, replied, "We couldn't tell them someone broke down your door and released a skunk in your apartment." "Why not?" he countered. "Because then they would ask my husband if he did it. He already knows, and if not, they would tell him I was here," she explained sweetly. Be honest, how many other women do you see? The lover demanded. No one, he retorted indignantly. When was the last time you slept with another woman besides me? Audrey pressed. A month ago, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. You've been sleeping with her this whole time, she accused. There was another one 6 months ago, he confessed quietly. Did their husbands find out? She inquired. Why do you think they were married? He replied defensively. Because I know what turns you on. Answer me, she insisted. Yes, he relented. Did they know it was you? Audrey asked. Not sure, he admitted, rubbing his temples in frustration. Great. Now I'm sure lying to the police was the right choice. This is likely revenge from one of their husbands. I'll find out if my husband did it, she declared, her tone resolute. Just then, Audrey's phone rang. Hey Audrey, have you picked up the cake yet? I asked, feigning innocence. Damn. I'm stuck at work. Leaving now, she replied hurriedly. Don't let Matt down, I warned playfully. I'm on my way, she exclaimed, hanging up. After showering and dressing, Audrey left. I stopped her car halfway to the store. After several frustrating attempts, the engine finally sputtered to life. It broke down 3 more times, but she eventually made it. She arrived late to the bowling alley, and as she walked in with the cake, we all instinctively covered our noses and coughed. Mom, why does she always miss our events? Matt asked, a hint of disappointment in his voice. She tries her best for the family, but sometimes it's hard to be in 2 places at once, I explained. But you're always there for us and make more money, he pointed out. I have a more flexible schedule, so it's easier for me to be with my favorite skunks, I joked, trying to lighten the mood. That's not funny, Dad, Marcy chimed in. It'll be hilarious when you tell your friends at school tomorrow, I replied with a grin. In the end, we had to throw away the smelly cake, much to the kids' amusement. They found humor in the chaos, and for a moment, the tension of the day melted away, replaced by laughter and the joy of simply being together. That night, I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I settled into the guest room. A few days later, I caught sight of Audrey in an unexpected moment, sniffing the upholstery in my car like a curious little mouse searching for cheese. Intrigued, I followed her upstairs, capturing the scene as she diligently sniffed my shoes, her expression earnest and focused. I couldn't help but wonder why her own car didn't carry the unmistakable scent of skunk. 2 Saturdays later, I decided to take a trip to the hardware store. When I announced my plans, no one seemed interested in joining me, so I set off alone. My destination was the apartment of Audrey's lover, a place I had been dreading to confront. When I arrived, I noticed his car parked outside, a stark reminder of the betrayal I was about to confront. I knocked on the door, and he answered, a hint of surprise on his face. How can I help you? He asked, feigning innocence. Actually, I think we can help each other, I replied, steeling myself for what was to come. I'm Audrey's husband. Can I come in? His expression shifted, turning pale as I pushed past him and took a seat at his kitchen table. The air was thick with the scent of fresh paint mixed with something pungent, a reflection of his new life with my wife. I know you've been seeing my wife, Audrey, for over 6 months, I stated flatly. Hey man, we're just friends, he protested, but the defensiveness in his voice didn't sway me. I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. Would it help if I showed you photos and videos of your get-togethers? I asked, my voice steady. I don't know what you're talking about, he shot back, but I could see the doubt creeping into his expression. No nonsense. I know you're sleeping with my wife, and I have proof, I replied, feeling a surge of resolve. I don't care about you, I care about what my wife does. Instead of hiring a detective to dig up dirt, I'm willing to pay you for it. He blinked, caught off guard. You want me to make a video of me having love with your wife? That'll cost $2,000. I could see him considering the proposition, the wheels turning in his mind. $2,000 for a video of me with your wife. Are you serious? Yes, I'm serious, I affirmed. I want a video showing her face and body during those moments. I'll also need written consent from you that you took the video and allowed me to use it. He hesitated, eyeing me warily. If you have so much evidence, why do you need a video? Because I need leverage for the divorce, I said bluntly. That would be really cruel, he replied, his voice low. Like how she betrays me and her children? I shot back, a fire igniting within me. He paused, contemplating my words. Yes, like that, he whispered. $2,000, and I won't tell the other husbands about their wives. I'll even pay for a spa day for you and Audrey at a hotel, I added, sweetening the deal. He stared at me, his expression a mix of intrigue and calculation. Make it $3,000, and we have a deal. Great. Just don't tell Audrey. I'll arrange and pay for the spa and hotel the Monday after. I'll call to set up a time to get the video and pay you in cash. All clear? I clarified, rising to leave. Yes, he confirmed, a flicker of eagerness in his eyes. Just make sure her face is visible in the footage. I'll send the consent form to you today and call you Monday, I said, stepping out and resuming my shopping. On Wednesday evening, I casually mentioned to Audrey that I had a conference this Saturday. Is that a problem? I asked, feigning nonchalance. No, it sounds like a relaxing weekend. Have fun, she replied, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. On Monday night, I picked up her lover, determined to keep this clandestine encounter discreet. We arrived at a quiet rest stop, and I carefully checked for any recording devices before leading him back into the car. Do you have what I need? I asked, urgency creeping into my tone. Yes, he replied, handing me a flash drive. I plugged it into my laptop, relief flooding over me as I saw the content was exactly what I had anticipated. Do you have the consent form? I inquired, knowing it was crucial. He handed me an envelope. I verified the contents and snapped a photo for my records. I then handed him an envelope filled with cash. He counted the bills, a smile breaking across his face. If you need another video, let me know. Easiest money I ever made, he chuckled. The next day, I shared the shocking truth with my brother and his wife, showing them a brief video, photos, and a list of Audrey's missed family events. I did the same for both our parents, asking them to ignore Audrey until I gave the all-clear. On Wednesday, while Audrey was with her lover, I sat down with the kids. Mom is infatuated with another man, and I'm not sure if she still loves me, I explained gently. They looked at me, wide-eyed, asking if we would get a divorce. We will discuss it with your mother, I replied softly, trying to keep my composure. Is she there now? They asked, alarmed. Yes, I admitted, showing them the GPS tracker on her car parked outside his apartment. Is this why Mom misses our events? Marcy asked, her voice shaky. I nodded, producing the list of missed events, highlighting the ones that mattered most. Their eyes filled with tears as they realized the implications, especially when I revealed how Audrey had left work on Matt's birthday. Damn that skunk, Marcy whispered, her anger palpable. Listen, I said, my heart heavy. The most important thing is that I love you both. This is a problem between your mother and me, and we will do everything we can to remain a family. After half an hour of crying and comforting each other, the door swung open. Audrey entered, her eyes scanning the room before landing on the children. What happened? She asked, concern etching her face. Children, go to your rooms while Mom and I talk, I instructed gently. As they left, I turned to Audrey. We need to talk. What's happening? She asked, trying to maintain her calm. Audrey, I know you're having an affair. Oh God, no. That's not true. I would never cheat on you. Why would you say that? She exclaimed, tears welling in her eyes. If you won't tell me the truth, this conversation is over, I declared firmly. This must be a mistake. Someone thought they saw something that wasn't true, she insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. Okay, we're done for today. Think about what you're doing to this family. We'll discuss this tomorrow. Until then, don't talk to me or the kids, I said, retreating to the guest room. I could hear her soft pleas through the door. Marcy, what did Daddy tell you? It's all a mistake. Please open the door so we can talk. Marcy texted me, seeking clarity. Can you make her go away? I'll try, but she just denied the affair, so there's no point if she's lying, I replied. Perhaps you're mistaken, Marcy wrote back. I have pictures of them unclothed together, I sent back, my heart racing. Oh, was all Marcy texted back. The atmosphere grew heavy with tension as I prepared for the conversations that lay ahead. I had to navigate this storm, not just for myself but for the sake of my children and our fractured family. As I opened the door, I was met by Audrey's pleading gaze, her eyes filled with an urgency that made my heart ache. Please, just leave the kids out of this until we can figure it all out. You're making it harder for them, she implored. I can't just stand by and ignore what's happening, Audrey, I replied firmly. They deserve to know the truth. You've involved another man in our lives, and we need to address it directly. This isn't just between us anymore. Audrey turned away, retreating to her bedroom, the sound of her sobs echoing in the silence of our home. It was a long, painful night for both of us. The next day, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for her return. The children were happily playing with friends, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around them. When Audrey finally walked through the door, I knew we had to talk. Audrey, please sit down, I said, my voice steady. She complied, her expression a mix of anxiety and resignation. Have you thought about what this is doing to our family? She nodded slowly, a flicker of guilt passing across her face. Yes, I have. Are you ready to discuss the affair openly and honestly? I pressed. Again, she nodded, though the tension in the air was palpable. What do you have to say for yourself? I asked, unable to mask the hurt in my tone. It's all a misunderstanding, she started. Yes, I had an emotional connection with someone else. We had lunch a few times, but that's all. I love only you. Her words hung in the air, but my skepticism loomed larger. If you're lying, then this conversation is over, I warned. We'll talk again on Saturday at 9 a.m. The kids will stay with my parents. Think about what you're doing to this family. After that, I retreated to the guest room, my heart heavy with unresolved tension. Saturday morning arrived, and I shared breakfast with the kids at Audrey's parents' house. It was a warm, comforting atmosphere, a stark contrast to the turmoil waiting for me at home. When I returned, I found Audrey at the kitchen table, her face drawn and weary. Are you ready to talk honestly now? I asked again, and she nodded, but the uncertainty lingered. Did you tell my parents? I inquired. Yes, she replied, her voice trembling. And your brother and his wife? I continued. Yes, she confirmed, her expression turning defensive. How could you do this to me? You lied to me, the kids, and our families. You kissed him a couple of times, and now you've turned them against me, I said, frustration boiling over. Since you refuse to be honest, this conversation is over, I concluded. The children will stay with their grandparents, and I'll be living in the guest room and working from home. We'll talk on Tuesday after work. Think about the impact this is having on our family. I left the house feeling defeated. Later that night, after dinner with my parents and kids, I returned home to find Audrey in the living room. We'll talk on Tuesday, I said, my heart heavy, before heading to bed. That evening, my phone buzzed with messages from Audrey's friends urging me to forgive her, labeling it an innocent mistake. Feeling incredulous, I made a video call to them, sharing the evidence of her affair. The conversation shifted quickly, their apology sincere yet uncomfortable, and I suspected they would distance themselves from her. On Tuesday evening, Audrey returned home, visibly exhausted but carrying a takeout bag from our favorite Italian restaurant. She prepared a plate for me, but I could see the weight of her actions hanging over her. "It takes a toll, doesn't it?" I remarked dryly. "Wondering which lies to tell your friends and family to hide how terrible you've been. No one talks to me anymore, they think I'm a monster," she lamented. "Lies have consequences," I replied, unable to hide my bitterness. "You've shown them there's a monster inside you." Audrey's voice quivered as she defended herself. "You showed them photos and videos of me with my lover." "Yes, I did," I stated flatly. "And you can see the evidence yourself if it helps." "Can I see it?" she asked, a glimmer of desperation in her eyes. "Of course," I said, handing her the photos. "I don't want our family ridiculed by this. It's already hard enough." As she looked at the images, tears streamed down her cheeks. "I love you so much. Can't we just forget this mistake?" I sighed deeply, shaking my head. "How strong was your love for me that you felt the need to be with someone else? You say you love me, yet you gave your heart away." "I never loved him," she insisted, her voice pleading. "Marriage is about shared responsibilities, trust, and fun. I thought we had that. But you left most of the financial and family responsibilities on my shoulders," I replied, my frustration bubbling over. "You went out and partied while I held everything together. You stole my love by giving yours to someone else." "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. 7 months, I confessed. "Why didn't you confront me sooner?" she pressed. "I hoped it was a one-time mistake. I thought you'd own up to it, especially since you always say you love me," I explained. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "And how can I trust you now?" I questioned. "Because I love you and I'm telling the truth," she replied, her eyes searching mine for reassurance. "Is this the same truth you told me in our last 3 conversations, where you denied everything?" I challenged. After a long silence, I asked, "What can I do to make things better?" I placed an envelope on the table in front of her. "This is a postnuptial agreement. Sign it, and I'll consider taking you back. We'll need therapy for us and the kids to make it work." "I don't want to sign a postnuptial agreement," she said defiantly. "Then we're done," I replied coldly. "It seems you only want to come out of this marriage better off financially." "What will I get if I sign it?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "If one of us files for divorce, I get 70% of everything. If I cheat, it's 50-50. If you cheat, I get 85%. In all scenarios, I retain full custody," I explained. "Have a lawyer look at it and sign it. I need to know you're willing to sacrifice financially." "How much time do I have?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Until Saturday morning," I said, standing up. "Aren't you going to eat?" "I ordered your favorite food," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "After everything you've done and all the lies, should I expect it to taste any good?" I shot back, my bitterness evident. Tears began to fall, and finally, late that night, Audrey signed the agreement, seeking to regain some measure of trust. The next day, I went to Audrey's office while she was out. I met with the office manager, an elderly woman whose husband owned the company. Her expression hardened as she approached. "How can I help you today?" she snapped. "I think there's been a misunderstanding about me being the bad guy in my marriage," I explained, trying to keep my tone calm. "This seems personal. Please leave, or I'll call the police," she said, clearly annoyed. "It's about my wife and a coworker she's having an affair with," I clarified, unwavering. "Do you have any evidence?" she asked. "Yes," I replied, handing her a photo and showing her audio recordings of them admitting their indiscretions. Her demeanor shifted as she listened, realizing the gravity of the situation. "I can assume my wife will be fired immediately?" I asked. "Yes, along with her lover," she said, visibly shaken. You can't fire her lover, I countered. I had permission to record my wife, not him. This can't be shown in court, and I don't want to be accused of anything. I doubt you do either, I added, sensing her relief. Thanks for the information, she said, her tone softening. Can I leave a photo? No, I replied firmly. As I left her office, I felt the weight of my decisions and the difficult path ahead. The road to healing was going to be long, but perhaps it was one we could navigate together. Audrey stepped through the door that evening, her eyes brimming with tears, the weight of her lost job heavy on her shoulders. She had faced the wrath of her employer, and now, without any references, she felt utterly defeated. Though she yearned to talk about it, I only managed to mutter, "Saturday," before retreating to my room, leaving the air thick with unspoken words. When Saturday morning dawned, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, a look of defiance etched on her face. "You should have quit immediately to avoid contact with your lover," I said, frustration creeping into my voice. "Your moral compass seems utterly broken. We should have discussed this first." She shot back, "I'm sorry, but we can't keep discussing decisions that negatively impact our marriage and our children." With a glance, I asked about the postnuptial agreement, and she handed me the envelope. I quickly checked it, sent an electronic copy to my lawyer, and tucked the physical document away in a safe place. Then I laid down the new house rules: good behavior from you, and we'll start counseling. I'll tell the family we're trying to fix our marriage. Deep down, I knew this wouldn't last. I hadn't even scheduled the counseling, it felt like a hollow promise. Audrey had always excelled at her role as the perfect housewife, but I knew she had installed a hidden camera in my office, and I had witnessed her do it on my laptop from my car that Saturday morning. When I walked into the kitchen, she was sipping her coffee, a smirk on her face, and we exchanged terse pleasantries. "Where are the children?" I asked, probing for clarity. "I took them to my parents," she replied coolly. "We haven't made love in a month, and I hope to change your mind this morning." "Actually," I retorted, "it's been 8 months. 8 months? That can't be right," she insisted, her brow furrowing. I shrugged, the bitterness souring my mouth. "It is," I affirmed. "Maybe you've lost track because of your cheating." "Well, we could change that," she said, her smile returning as she began to rise from her seat. "Audrey, I can't forget what you did. I can't erase those images," I said, motioning for her to sit back down. "It won't happen." "Fine, be stubborn," she shot back. "I did everything you asked, and you still treat me like a leper. I want more respect. Is this how you want to handle it?" I countered. "Yes," she replied defiantly. "I deleted all your copies of the videos. I even removed everything from the cloud and destroyed the flash drive. I'm tired of being an outcast. I'll stay with my sister until you treat me with respect. I'll pick up the kids from school every day, and we'll have dinner at my new place without you." With that, she stormed to the front door, her sister emerging from the dining room as they left together. For 2 long months, Audrey played her game, working on our children and her parents, painting me as the villain who had no records or proof. She claimed the photos were photoshopped, demanding that I provide evidence while she had erased everything. Confusion reigned in our children's eyes, while her parents were quick to believe her, sowing seeds of doubt in my own family as well. Thankfully, my brother and his wife stood firmly by my side, offering support that felt increasingly rare. Feeling isolated, I decided to confront her lover to orchestrate another video. This time, I went all out: a hotel room on a sun-kissed Florida beach, 2 first-class tickets, and $5,000 for the recording. I insisted the video be captured on the balcony, but her lover, eager for more money, suggested an expensive restaurant as well. Audrey and her sister Karen were thrilled, and I bought another first-class ticket for Karen. 2 weeks later, as I watched the new video from my car, everything played out exactly as I had requested. I encrypted the video, uploaded it to the cloud, and secured the flash drive. When the lover demanded his payment, I had questions. "Did you approach my wife first?" "Not really." It just happened, he replied, a hint of defensiveness in his tone. Who brought up the lovemaking first? I pressed further. She did, he confessed. As we drove back, I couldn't help but ask how many women he had seduced in town. 7, he replied, listing them off casually, each one married. I turned off the recorder hidden in my pocket. Want to see something crazy? I asked, accelerating the car to 70 miles per hour. Hey man, what are you doing? He exclaimed, panic creeping into his voice. Sorry, this is the crazy part, I said, deliberately steering toward the trees and braking sharply. We collided with a tree at less than 40 miles per hour. Both of us were hurt, but we were alive. After calling the police to report the accident, they confiscated my laptop and flash drive as evidence. Following an examination at the hospital, I returned home, feeling sick for an entire week. It wasn't long before Audrey found out about my accident through whispers of her lover's tragic end. She called, desperate for information, but I feigned ignorance. The next day, the police questioned me about the connection between the deceased and my wife. I admitted to knowing about the affair and explained that I had paid him to stay away from her, but he had demanded more, which led to the accident. So, you think I deliberately crashed the car to eliminate him? I asked, incredulity coloring my voice. The police left shortly after, but they had me in a corner. Opportunity and motive were clear, yet who would risk their life to eliminate someone by crashing into a tree? Days later, Audrey called again, wanting to discuss our marriage on neutral ground, with her sister present for safety. The house is out, I told her firmly. I don't want this conversation recorded. Let's meet at a hotel. She agreed, but I insisted on choosing the room number. It's for safety, she argued, but I had my reasons. We ultimately decided on a hotel for our meeting that Saturday. I followed Audrey and Karen to the hotel, where the receptionist offered us room 216. I asked for a higher room, overlooking the front entrance, and Audrey and Karen's disappointment was palpable. They would likely have to pay again to retrieve their recording equipment from room 216. In the elevator, Karen flirted with me, pressing against my side. I reminded her that the discussion was between me and Audrey. Karen, who usually kept her distance at Audrey's insistence, seemed unusually bold. The hotel room was standard, with a chest of drawers, an office desk chair, and a queen-sized bed. What now? Audrey asked, her eyes darting nervously. Take off your clothes, I replied, my tone unwavering. I want us completely unclothed. I don't trust you, and you don't trust me, I continued. Audrey looked at Karen, her sister's presence complicating the situation. Come on, she doesn't have anything most people in this town haven't seen, I added, my voice firm. Karen stuck out her tongue, revealing a piercing, which only made the atmosphere tenser. Okay, Audrey finally agreed, her resolve crumbling. As they began to undress, I quickly stripped down and folded my clothes neatly on the desk, placing a pen behind them. This pen matched the hotel's exactly but housed a hidden camera. When Audrey suggested we meet at the hotel, I knew it was a pivotal moment. I had prepared for this, ready to unveil the truth, to expose the tangled web of lies and deceit that had ensnared our lives. Little did I know, this would be just the beginning of a deeper conflict, one that would force both of us to confront our truths and the shattered pieces of our marriage. I embarked on a covert mission, one that would reveal the truth I desperately sought. Armed with my determination, I visited every hotel and motel in town, all in pursuit of a simple yet crucial tool, a free pen. After hollowing one out to accommodate a hidden camera, the pen became unexpectedly heavier than the ordinary writing instrument. With my disguise ready, I strategically placed my clothes in the bathroom, setting the stage for what was to unfold. Peering from my vantage point, I watched Audrey and Karen as they undressed, their laughter filling the room. I then made my entrance, nonchalantly walking back to the table without a stitch on, my heart pounding as I tried to maintain my composure. Audrey and Karen were comfortably sprawled on the bed, their clothes scattered nearby. Now that we're all here, let's get started, I said, forcing myself to focus on the conversation instead of Karen's captivating figure. "Audrey, we need to have a serious talk," I announced, attempting to sound calm. Audrey responded sweetly, "You'll know what this is really about in just a few minutes." "I love you, darling," I replied, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Sure, like you love your favorite pair of shoes," she shot back, her tone sharp. "I truly love you, Audrey," she insisted, but I couldn't help but retort, "as long as your credit card still works, right?" Her voice rose defensively, "Don't be so sullen. Our marriage is strong enough to handle this." "Strong? You stabbed me in the back repeatedly and now you want me to turn my back on the truth?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "Don't be so melodramatic. It was a mistake," she pleaded, but I countered coldly, "A mistake that will end in divorce." "It was just a little mistake," she insisted, her voice trembling slightly. "It wasn't small. It was a calculated betrayal," I retorted, mimicking her falsetto. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would hurt you, honey. I'm sorry I lied. I was ashamed. I stopped lying when you confronted me. Only after I presented you with the evidence," I added, watching her expression shift as I continued. "Oh, you mean when you first denied it? Or when you called it an emotional connection? Or the third time when you admitted it was just a kiss?" Karen, noticing the growing tension, interjected, "Let's not say things we'll regret." "Are you kidding?" I countered, directing my ire at Audrey. "How many boyfriends and husbands have you deceived? How many married men have you seduced?" Audrey's gaze dropped, and she whispered, "I'm so sorry for what I did." "Feeling guilty isn't enough," I replied coldly. "My job is to help you truly feel the weight of your actions. It's not that bad," she protested. "What's the difference between you and a con artist?" I asked pointedly. "You gained my trust only to deceive me." "I didn't deceive you. Marriage is a contract of fidelity and trust, and you broke it." Audrey argued back. I kept my end. "You betrayed me. You forced me to sign that postnuptial agreement. That was unfair," she complained. "Unfair? If I get a traffic ticket, I pay the fine. If I cheat on my taxes, they take my money. If I drink too much, I go to jail. Cheaters should face consequences. Marriage is about raising a family and being faithful, otherwise, what's the point?" The room fell silent as her expression shifted from defensive to contemplative. "Do you know how many marriages that start with infidelity last more than a few years? 5%. Was it your plan to divorce me and marry your lover?" "Your lover is dead," I added, striking a nerve. Audrey's face twisted in anger as I continued, "I deleted all your evidence. You can't control me anymore. Our parents and children don't know who to believe. Was it worth it?" I challenged. "I didn't destroy this marriage, you did. I'm just stating the time of the end of our life together," I concluded. In a fit of rage, she exclaimed, "Maybe I wouldn't have slept with someone else if you'd paid more attention to me." "Why should I? You didn't pay attention to me," I shot back. We sat in silence for a moment, letting the tension settle, when suddenly Audrey asked, "Did you eliminate him?" A smile crept across my face as I thought of the hidden camera and the pen. "It was an accident," I replied, feigning ignorance. "How could you do such a thing?" She pressed, attempting to provoke an emotional response, but I remained composed. As tears filled her eyes, she lamented, "He was a good guy." "Good? You mean those guys who seduce other people's wives?" I retorted, my voice rising with anger. Audrey, now in tears, said, "But you still love me." "I know that." I corrected her firmly, "I loved you. True love is a privilege most people never experience. You had that with me, but all I got was your desire for a husband, money, and fidelity. You threw away real love for vulgar passion. Millions will desire you for passion, but no one will love you like I did." With finality, I declared, "After what you did to your family and me, that love is gone." Tears streamed down Audrey's face, but she quickly regained her composure, saying, "I need a drink. Anyone else want something? I'll go to the bar and be back to talk like adults." She got dressed and left, and as soon as the door closed, Karen leaned in and said, "You look delicious." "Karen, now is not the time," I replied, but she stood between my legs, undeterred. "Your sister will be back soon," I warned, trying to push her away, but she suddenly pulled me onto the bed, crying out, "Please stop." Just then, Audrey burst in, phone in hand. "What are you doing to my sister?" Karen cried. "He attacked me. Make him stop." Audrey pushed me aside, smiling as she dropped the phone. She quickly picked it back up, pressed the end button, and possibly sent the video to the cloud. "Now you're in trouble," she said triumphantly, laughing with Karen. I sank back into my chair, feeling defeated as they reveled in my despair. "Here's how the divorce will work," Audrey declared, wagging her finger. "No more postnuptial agreement. If you mention it, I'll send you to jail. You get 10%, I get 90%, full custody, and support for life. If you don't agree, this video will send you to jail." "Yes," I replied, realizing I had severely underestimated Audrey. This was her master plan, and it was working flawlessly. Karen quickly got dressed, and as Audrey regained her composure, she said, "Come on." Just 10 minutes ago, Audrey had been crying over lost love. Now, she was leaving with her sister, both of them laughing at my expense. I watched from the window until they disappeared from view, then I got dressed, pocketed my pen, and left the hotel. The meeting had turned out even better than I had anticipated. The following day, I served Audrey with divorce papers, enforcing the postnuptial agreement and making it clear that her threats would no longer control me. As the tension in the courtroom mounted, I turned to Audrey, a mixture of anger and hurt coursing through me. "You didn't delete everything," I declared, my voice steady yet filled with conviction. "If you try to pin this on me, just remember, I'll be free by tomorrow, while you'll find yourself behind bars." Audrey, ever the strategist, knew better than to react impulsively. We both hired attorneys, fully aware that the stakes were high. I insisted on upholding the postnuptial agreement, a lifeline in this tempestuous sea of betrayal. My lawyer shared that we were still piecing together the digital puzzle, restoring deleted records while we had only the transcripts for now. Days passed, and finally, we set a court date. The central question loomed: was the postnuptial agreement valid, and did I possess irrefutable evidence? A few days prior to the trial, I resorted to a desperate measure. I forged letters from the CDC, claiming that Audrey's lover had AIDS, urging them both to get tested immediately. The letters warned them to abstain from intimacy for a full year until they could confirm their health status. On the day of the trial, the judge's demeanor was anything but forgiving. Audrey stood before him, tears in her eyes, claiming that the postnuptial agreement had been signed under duress and that she had never been unfaithful. Her performance was Oscar-worthy, yet I knew the truth behind those tears. I countered her claims, arguing that the postnuptial agreement had been put in place precisely because of her infidelity, signed in the heat of our crumbling marriage. I painted her as an unfit mother who had violated the terms of our commitment. The judge, unimpressed, turned to my lawyer. "What evidence do you have to support these allegations?" With a calm demeanor, my lawyer presented video and audio recordings that corroborated the transcripts. The judge raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Why are you producing this evidence now?" My lawyer explained the challenges we faced in retrieving the recordings, detailing the painstaking process of recovering data that Audrey believed she had erased. I chimed in, "Yes, Your Honor, Audrey deleted the posts, but we have a recording of her admitting it. She was convinced I had lost control over the videos, but I had taken measures to safeguard them." The judge was intrigued. "So, you're saying the recordings were kept in multiple locations?" I nodded. "Indeed, Your Honor. Evidence tampering is taken very seriously in court." Audrey denied her transgressions, asserting that I had no proof. But I stood firm, saying, "Your Honor, I do have proof." The judge turned to Audrey's attorney, Pressing further, do the transcripts match the recordings? With a slight nod, her lawyer confirmed, yes, Your Honor. Do you dispute the authenticity of these recordings? The judge's question hung heavily in the air. Audrey's lawyer glanced at her, then shook his head. No, Your Honor. This ruling solidified the validity of the recordings, casting aside any claims of coercion. However, the judge noted, but none of this proves infidelity after the contract was signed. My lawyer stepped in, Your Honor, here is the final video transcript, which unequivocally proves Audrey's infidelity after signing the agreement. Why present this evidence now? The judge inquired. It was in police custody due to an unrelated investigation, and we weren't certain it still existed, my lawyer clarified. Turning back to Audrey's lawyer, the judge asked, Have you seen the video? Yes, but we can test its appropriateness due to the lack of a consent form, the lawyer replied, nervously. The judge shifted his gaze to me. Did you consent to your wife's affair? Absolutely not, I replied, my voice unwavering. I never condoned her actions. Then why did you pay for her lover's tickets and hotel? The judge pressed. I explained, when I confronted her lover, I offered him $2,000 for him to end the affair, which he accepted. The payment included flight tickets to Jamaica and a 3-night stay at a luxury hotel. How do we know this is the right hotel? The judge probed. I produced a photo with the hotel sign clearly visible in the background. In the first photo, you can see the hotel sign, I pointed out. How did you acquire this video? The judge continued. I paid for it. After discovering the affair, I asked for proof, and he provided me with visual evidence, I explained. Why go to such lengths? The judge inquired. I wanted a divorce, I replied simply. Did he know why you were collecting this information? The judge asked again. Yes, I found it simpler and less expensive to obtain his testimony than to hire a private investigator, I clarified, revealing that I had paid him $500 for another video. Your Honor, Audrey broke the postnuptial agreement. If you need someone to testify about the video's authenticity, her sister is right there, I pointed at Karen, who sat quietly. Obscene language will not be tolerated in this court, the judge reprimanded me, and I quickly apologized. The judge, maintaining his stern demeanor, asked, Is that all you obtained from your wife's lover that night? Yes, but he provided most of the records you have today, I replied, meeting Audrey's furious gaze. I could see the realization dawn on her. Her lover had been recording their encounters, selling me the evidence for a mere $3,000. I could almost see the gears turning in her head as she calculated her next move. This revelation hit her hard. For 10 times that amount, she would have done anything to keep the videos hidden, yet here I was, holding the upper hand. Just as I finished my testimony, Audrey whispered something to her lawyer, who requested a break before lunch. The judge granted it, and we stepped out of the courtroom. Upon returning, Audrey's lawyer made a shocking claim. They had video evidence of me committing a crime that would violate the postnuptial agreement. Audrey and Karen were both willing to testify to its authenticity. Audrey then added, I didn't want to put the father of my children in jail, but now. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. It was clear that both of us were willing to fight tooth and nail, and the next move would determine the fate of our fractured family. As I sat in the courtroom, I couldn't shake off the feeling of tension in the air. The evidence was damning. A video played on the screen, revealing a moment that would forever change our lives. It began with a glimpse of the hotel door, the sound of someone's desperate pleas echoing, "Please stop." Suddenly, there was Audrey, bursting through the door, catching me atop her sister, Karen. "What are you doing to my sister?" she screamed, her voice laced with rage and confusion, while Karen sobbed, "He attacked me." Audrey's fury was palpable as she grabbed Karen, causing her phone to tumble to the ground, and just like that, the video ended. The judge, seated with an air of authority, turned to me. "What happened next?" he inquired. "I locked myself in the bathroom and told my husband that if he didn't leave in 2 minutes, "I would call the police," I responded, recalling the fear that had propelled my actions. I also told him I had uploaded the video to the cloud. "Yes," Audrey affirmed, her tone suggesting the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her. I could feel the eyes of Audrey's parents boring into me, their expressions suspicious and critical. The judge shifted his focus toward me. "What do you say in your defense?" My lawyer, composed and confident, replied, "We have a video that counters these claims. Let's see it." The tension escalated as Audrey's lawyer attempted to discredit our footage, but the judge interjected, "You may present your video, but we cannot see the rebuttal." As the video commenced, it unveiled the stark contrast of our earlier discussions. We had spoken about avoiding recording devices, and the laughter of Audrey and Karen as they exited the room only underscored their betrayal. I sensed the judge's empathy, his eyes reflected a shared understanding of heartbreak and infidelity. Audrey leaned in to whisper to her lawyer, who shook his head in disapproval. My lawyer confirmed that none of my statements in the video were self-incriminating, a fact that clearly frustrated Audrey. She had initially intended to charm me into forgiveness but now found herself ensnared in her own web of deceit. The fake attack on Karen had backfired spectacularly, with the footage of her pulling me onto the bed leading to an undeniable truth. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. Audrey's pallor spoke volumes as her parents sighed in resignation. They were visibly disheartened, and as relatives began to leave, it became clear, Audrey had lost their support. The judge ruled in favor of the postnuptial agreement. But the revelations didn't end there. My lawyer uncovered a hidden secret. Audrey had a bank account containing more money than our combined assets. She had been siphoning her paychecks and bonuses into this account for years, even taking out a second mortgage on our home without my knowledge. I had to make a choice. I instructed my lawyer not to disclose this information to the judge or Audrey just yet. My lawyer presented my bank account balance, revealing that Audrey had illicitly transferred our mortgage funds to her secret account, suggesting a plan to escape with our assets. This oversight led to the discovery of her hidden finances. The second mortgage transfer was actually conducted by me using Audrey's login credentials, which I had uncovered after installing a monitoring program on our shared accounts. According to the law, hidden funds not disclosed during divorce proceedings were subject to specific regulations. The judge awarded me 100% of our shared assets and mandated Audrey to pay all legal fees and court costs due to her greed. It became evident that she had transferred our property into her secret account to avoid splitting the value of our house. In a shocking turn of events, the judge sentenced both Audrey and Karen to 90 days in jail for perjury. I emerged from the courtroom victorious, receiving 95% of our assets, full custody of the children, the house, 2 of our 3 cars, and several years of alimony. In contrast, Audrey walked away with a meager 5%, which barely covered her legal expenses. While she retained her clothing, car, and some jewelry, I had already sold off her expensive jewelry upon discovering her affair, and she hadn't even noticed my absence. The funds from those sales, coupled with accident insurance, allowed me to finally purchase my dream car. As time passed, I witnessed the repercussions of her actions. Audrey struggled to maintain a relationship with the children, enduring an hour-long commute for work. The bond had been irreparably damaged. They never forgave her and were ashamed to be seen with her. Both she and Karen found themselves working as bar waitresses, a far cry from the life they had envisioned. I also took it upon myself to send the last words of her lover to the husbands of several wives who had been deceived by her. Occasionally, drunken messages from Audrey would land on my phone, swinging from curses wishing for my demise to tearful pleas for forgiveness and a longing for reconciliation. I saved every message and video, prepared for the day she might attempt to re-enter our children's lives. The reality struck hard. Audrey had never truly loved me as I loved her. She viewed life through a lens of selfishness, measuring it by what she could take rather than what she could give. To protect myself and my children, I secured a restraining order against her and her sister, knowing they might still harbor resentment toward me. As the courtroom drama faded into memory, I realized I had emerged not just with my possessions, but with a renewed sense of self. I had faced the chaos head-on, and in doing so, I had taken the first steps toward healing.